Captain Kalen Vance stepped off the shuttle onto the crystalline platform of Cygnus X-7's main diplomatic outpost. The air carried a sweet, metallic tang that always reminded him of copper pennies dipped in honey. After 15 years in interstellar diplomacy, Kalen had learned to appreciate rather than merely tolerate the alien atmospheres he encountered. This particular blend was breathable for humans without assistance, though the slightly higher oxygen content left him feeling subtly energized. Captain Vance, welcome to AR Shalim. The Xylosian greeting party stood in perfect formation, their feathered crests rising in synchronized respect. The avian-like Xylosians had fascinated humans since first contact a decade ago. Standing approximately 7 feet tall with slender frames covered in iridescent feathers ranging from deep indigo to brilliant teal, they commanded respect with their regal bearing. Their faces featured sharp, beak-like protrusions and large, luminous eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. But it was their advanced psycho-spiritual technology and complex social structure that truly distinguished them among galactic species. "Hi, Elder Talix. I'm honored by your personal welcome," Kalen replied, executing the traditional greeting gesture. Right palm flat against his chest, left hand extended forward, fingers spread in the shape of star. The Federation had coached him extensively on Xylosian customs before this mission. As the lead human negotiator for a proposed trade agreement involving rare minerals and psycho-spiritual technology exchange, he couldn't afford cultural missteps. "The honor is ours," Elder Talix responded, his feathered crest fluttering slightly, a sign of genuine pleasure, Kalen had learned. "We have prepared the Hall of Ancestral Whispers for our deliberations. But first, a welcome ceremony awaits. Will you join us?" Kalen nodded, falling in a step beside the elder as they proceeded along a pathway that seemed to shimmer beneath their feet, embedded with tiny crystals that resonated with each footfall. The diplomatic compound rose around them, a marvel of organic architecture where crystalline structures grew from the bedrock in mathematically perfect spirals, their surfaces etched with ancient symbols that occasionally pulsed with inner light. "Your Federation briefings likely mentioned our belief in destiny bonds," Elder Talix said as they walked. "Today's ceremony includes several young ones who will present themselves to you as potential future allies. It is merely symbolic, but holds great meaning in our culture." "I understand the importance of such traditions," Kalen replied, though in truth, he found the concept of destiny bonds still somewhat mysterious. Federation anthropologists had struggled to fully translate the concept, a Xylosian belief that certain souls were cosmically linked across time, destined to influence each other in ways that rippled through the universe. The welcome ceremony took place in a vast chamber whose domed ceiling displayed a perfect replica of the local night sky. Hundreds of Xylosians had gathered, their feathers creating a mosaic of blues and purples. As Kalen was led to a ceremonial platform, he observed various cultural rituals, synchronized movements that reminded him of earthbirds performing mating dances, harmonic vocalizations that made the crystal walls vibrate, and the occasional flash of what appeared to be telekinetic communication. After formal introductions and ritual exchanges came the presentation of the young ones, Xylosian children ranging from what would be equivalent to 5 to 10 Earth years in development. They approached one by one, offering small tokens and reciting phrases in their native tongue that his translator rendered as pledges of future friendship and cooperation. The ceremony had stretched for nearly 2 hours when a slight commotion disrupted the perfect order. A small Xylosian child, distinctly smaller than the others, darted from the formation, evading the gentle grasp of her caretaker. Before anyone could intervene, she stood directly before Kalen, looking up with eyes of such brilliant amber that they stood out even among her kind. "You have traveled beyond the 7 stars," she said in surprisingly clear standard English, without the aid of translation technology. "Will you tell me of the worlds beyond our skies?" A hush fell over the assembly. Elder Talix stepped forward, his feathers flattening slightly in what Kalen recognized as embarrassment. "Forgive young Lyra's impetuousness, Captain," She is the daughter of our chief knowledge keeper and has been studying your language without proper ceremonial context. Kalen smiled, charmed by the child's boldness. There's nothing to forgive. Curiosity is a trait our species share. He crouched down to meet the young Xylosian at eye level. Hello, Lyra. I've seen 16 different planetary systems. Would you like to hear about the rings of Cassiopeia or the floating cities of Vega Prime? Lyra's feathers rippled with excitement, the Xylosian equivalent of a human child bouncing on their toes. All of them. I wish to know all the stars you've touched. Something about her enthusiasm warmed Kalen's heart. After weeks of tense negotiations and diplomatic maneuvering, the child's genuine interest felt refreshing. That would take more time than I have today, little one. But perhaps when I return. Will you return to Cygnus? Her head tilted in the distinctly avian gesture of inquiry. If the stars favor it, he replied, using a Xylosian phrase he'd picked up. Lyra's feathers suddenly stilled, and she adopted the formal posture of adult Xylosians. When I am grown, I shall be a stellar navigator and visit all the worlds. Will you take me as your companion when that day comes? A ripple of surprise trills ran through the assembly. Elder Talix moved forward as if to intervene, but hesitated. Kalen, not fully understanding the cultural significance of the moment, but sensing he needed to respond kindly, chuckled softly. Well, Lyra of Cygnus, when you grow into a beautiful Xylosian queen, I shall return and make you my bride. We can explore the stars together. He meant it as a gentle joke, the kind of playful promise adults on Earth might make to children, like telling them they'll catch the moon for them someday. But the absolute silence that followed his words indicated he'd said something with far deeper implications. Before he could inquire or clarify, Elder Talix gently guided the child back to her place. Captain Vance honors you greatly, young Lyra, he said, his tone formal and weighted with meaning. Remember this moment when you enter your feather change. The ceremony resumed, but Kalen noticed a subtle difference in the atmosphere, a new intensity in the way the Xylosians regarded him. When he inquired later to his Federation cultural attaché, the young woman paled slightly. Captain, you may have inadvertently entered a pre-bond declaration. In Xylosian culture, promises regarding future unions are considered highly binding, especially when made to children, as they're believed to shape destiny itself. Kalen shook his head. Surely they understand I was just being kind to a child? It was clearly not a serious proposal. Cultural misunderstandings are common in early diplomatic relations, she offered diplomatically. I'll make a note in the cultural briefing reports. But since you're leaving tomorrow, it likely won't become an issue. Kalen agreed, and by the next day's departure, the incident had already faded from his immediate concerns, replaced by the complex terms of the trade agreement and his next assignment. As his shuttle lifted off from the crystalline platform, he caught a glimpse of a small figure watching from a high balcony, her feathers reflecting the morning light in flashes of blue and gold. Within weeks, the memory of the little Xylosian girl with amber eyes had been filed away, with countless other diplomatic encounters, an amusing anecdote he occasionally shared with fellow diplomats over drinks, emblematic of the cultural pitfalls that awaited even the most prepared human representatives. 15 years passed. Kalen Vance, now Admiral Vance, stood before the viewport of Aegis Station, watching the distant sun of the Cygnus system cast its red-gold light across the void. The massive space station served as the Federation's diplomatic and commercial hub for this sector, and from his position as strategic commander, Kalen oversaw operations that affected relations with 7 non-human species, including the increasingly important Xylosians. Admiral, the Xylosian delegation will dock in 30 minutes, his aide, Lieutenant Commander Sato, informed him. The welcoming party is assembled in Bay 12. Thank you. Any updates on the delegation's composition? Last communication mentioned a special envoy accompanying Elder Merix. Yes, sir. They added someone at the last minute, a junior diplomat named Lyra Tevas. Intelligence has minimal information on her, but she's apparently connected to their keeper of knowledge caste. The name triggered the faintest memory, but Kalen dismissed it. Probably a political appointment. young nobility getting field experience. Make sure the welcome package includes the updated cultural protocols. Already done, sir. Also, your personal communique from Earth arrived. Marked urgent from Admiral Chun. Kayla nodded. I'll review it before the reception. Have them bring the delegation directly to the Harmony Chamber once they've cleared customs. The Harmony Chamber, Aegis Station's primary diplomatic venue, had been specifically designed for Xylosian comfort, with customized atmospheric controls, crystal accents that mimicked their homeworld architecture, and subtle blue-spectrum lighting that complemented their visual perception. As Kalen entered to await the delegation, he found himself reflecting on how far human-Xylosian relations had progressed since his first mission to Cygnus X7. The trade agreement he'd helped establish had evolved into a full alliance. Xylosian psycho-spiritual technology had revolutionized human medicine, particularly in neurological treatments, while Federation engineering expertise had helped the Xylosians expand their presence to 2 neighboring systems. Yet cultural misunderstandings still occurred regularly, and this summit aimed to address several recent incidents. Admiral Vance announced the door attendant. The Cygnus delegation has arrived. Kalen straightened his uniform and adopted the formal posture appropriate for receiving high-ranking Xylosians. Elder Merix entered first, his aged feathers bearing the silver-blue tips that signified wisdom and authority. Behind him came 3 senior advisors Kalen recognized from previous meetings, and then he froze, momentarily stunned by the Xylosian who entered last. She stood taller than most females of her species, her feathers a deep indigo that shifted to teal at the edges. But it was her eyes that triggered instant recognition, brilliant amber, regarding him with unmistakable intelligence, and something else. Expectation. Admiral Kalen Vance. Elder Merix began formally. We bring greetings from the 7 houses of Cygnus. May I present our advisors? And he gestured to the female whose gaze remained fixed on Kalen. Lyra Tavas, Keeper Initiate of Ancestral Knowledge and Stellar Navigation Adept. Kalen performed the traditional greeting automatically, his mind racing back 15 years to a small child darting from formation, asking about stars. We have met before, Admiral, Lyra said, her English perfect but carrying the musical intonation particular to her species. Though time has drawn its line between then and now. I remember, he managed, aware that every Xylosian in the room was watching this exchange with unusual intensity. You've accomplished your goal of becoming a stellar navigator, I see. Her feather crest rippled in what might have been pleasure. One many goals, Admiral. I have prepared most carefully for this day. Before Kalen could respond, Elder Merix intervened smoothly. The journey has been long. Perhaps we might proceed with formal welcomes before private remembrances. The diplomatic reception proceeded according to protocol, but Kalen found himself distracted throughout. Lyra participated minimally in the formal discussions, but her presence commanded his awareness. She had positioned herself where he would inevitably see her regardless of whom he was addressing. When the reception concluded and the delegation prepared to retire to their assigned quarters, Lyra approached him directly. Admiral Vance, tradition dictates that destiny-bound souls must reconnect in privacy before witnesses can acknowledge the bond. Would you honor me with such a meeting? Elder Merix, overhearing, nodded slightly to Kalen, indicating this request was expected and appropriate. Of course, Kalen replied, diplomatic training overriding his confusion. Perhaps tomorrow morning? My office provides suitable privacy. The time of first light would be most auspicious, she agreed. Until then, I shall prepare my spirit for renewal. After the Xylosians departed, Kalen immediately called an emergency briefing with his cultural affairs team. Chief anthropologist Dr. Miranda Ellis had specialized in Xylosian studies for the past decade. Dr. Ellis, I need urgent clarification on something called destiny bonds and what exactly a pre-bond declaration might entail. Dr. Ellis's eyes widened slightly. This is concerning the young female delegate, isn't it? Lyra Tavas. How did you know? Word travels quickly on a space station, Admiral. Several of the junior officers observed what they described as intense eye-locking between you and the youngest delegate. She hesitated. May I ask if you've had previous contact with her? Kalen sighed, recounting the incident from 15 years ago. As he spoke, Dr. Ellis's expression grew increasingly concerned. Admiral, what you described is what Xylosians call Teori Veshtu, a destiny promise. In their culture, such declarations, especially to children before their feather change, are considered nearly sacred. They believe such promises shape the very fabric of fate. It was clearly a human jest, Kalen protested. Surely after 15 years of cultural exchange, they understand that. Dr. Ellis shook her head. You're underestimating the fundamental nature of this belief. It's not simply cultural. It's tied to their actual psycho-spiritual biology. Xylosians experience a form of quantum entanglement at the neural level. Promises made during certain developmental stages actually create detectable changes in their neurological patterns. Are you saying my casual comment 15 years ago literally rewired her brain? In human terms, yes. She would have undergone her feather change, their puberty equivalent, with neural pathways specifically attuned to you and the future you described together. It's likely she spent years preparing for this reunion. Kalen paced the small conference room, digesting this information. What exactly is she expecting from me now? Fulfillment of the promise, marriage, in human terms. Though Xylosian pair bonding involves significantly deeper psycho-spiritual aspects than our concept of marriage. Dr. Ellis hesitated. Admiral, refusing such a bond after it's been neurologically established can have severe consequences for a Xylosian. In rare cases, it's been known to trigger a condition similar to profound depression, sometimes leading to a complete psychic collapse. You're telling me that rejecting her could essentially destroy her mind? Kalen felt his stomach twist. That's an impossible position to put someone in. There must be some cultural accommodation for misunderstandings. There are ritual paths for dissolving unwanted bonds, but they're complex and often traumatic for the Xylosian partner. And given her family's status, daughter of their knowledge keeper, this has political implications as well. The Xylosians may view your rejection as a diplomatic insult. Kalen rubbed his temples. Brief me on these rituals before tomorrow's meeting. I need to understand all options. That night, sleep eluded him. His career had been built on navigating complex diplomatic situations, but nothing had prepared him for this personal entanglement. By morning, he had resolved to be direct but compassionate, to explain the cultural misunderstanding and offer whatever accommodation might minimize harm to Lyra. When she entered his office at first light, the station's artificial dawn, Kalen was struck by the transformation 15 years had wrought. Gone was the impulsive child. Before him stood a poised individual whose every movement conveyed grace and purpose. Her feathers had the glossy sheen of prime health, and the traditional Xylosian robe she wore, deep blue with silver geometric patterns, emphasized her statuesque height. Admiral Vance, she began, closing the door behind her. I have carried your promise through 5,473 rotations of my world. Each day strengthened my resolve to make myself worthy of the destiny you proclaimed. Lyra, he said gently, I need to explain something important about human interactions. When I spoke to you years ago, I was using what we call a figure of speech, a playful exaggeration not meant to be taken literally. Her head tilted, feather crest flattening slightly. You refer to what humans call joking. We are familiar with this concept. Then you understand I didn't actually intend to make a marriage proposal to a child. What you intended and what the universe heard are separate matters, Admiral. Her voice remained calm, but her feathers rippled in what his training identified as emotional intensity. When certain words are spoken at certain moments, they create pathways in the cosmic fabric. Your human concept of joke does not negate the psycho-spiritual reality of what was established. Kalen leaned forward. Lyra, I have great respect for your culture and beliefs, but I cannot enter a marriage, a pair bond, based on a misunderstood comment made to a child 15 years ago. She regarded him steadily. I ask not for immediate bonding, Admiral. Xylosian tradition requires a proper courting period, typically one full cycle of our largest moon. During this time, Both parties demonstrate their compatibility and worthiness. I request only this opportunity before you refuse what fate has designed. And if, after this courting period, I still decline, her feathers stilled completely, a sign of deep emotional control, then I would submit to the ritual of severed paths. It is painful, but survivable. My family has arranged for a spiritual healer to accompany our delegation, should this become necessary. The implication was clear. They had prepared for her potential rejection and its consequences. Kalen felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had unintentionally set this chain of events in motion, and now his actions would have profound effects regardless of his choice. What exactly would this courting period involve? Something like hope flickered in her amber eyes. 7 meetings, following traditional patterns. The first explores mental connection through shared knowledge. The second examines spiritual alignment through meditation practices. The third tests physical coordination through ritual movement. The fourth reveals emotional resonance through artistic expression. The fifth challenges practical compatibility through problem solving. The sixth opens ancestral connections through dream sharing. The seventh is private. Kalen considered his options. Refusing outright would cause diplomatic strain and potentially harm Lyra psychologically. Agreeing to the courting ritual would buy time to find a better solution, and perhaps help Lyra understand their fundamental incompatibility naturally. I will participate in the courting ritual, he decided. But I must be clear, I make no promises regarding the outcome. Clarity honors us both, she replied, her feathers relaxing into what appeared to be relief. The first meeting shall commence at median light tomorrow. Please prepare to share knowledge that shapes your core understanding. After she departed, Kalen immediately contacted his superiors. Admiral Terrence at Federation Command responded to his urgent transmission with characteristic bluntness. Let me get this straight, Vance. You accidentally proposed to an alien princess 15 years ago, and now she's come to collect. She's not a princess, sir. Her family holds significant cultural authority, but they're more like scholars than royalty. Whatever. The diplomatic implications are the same. Admiral Terrence's weathered face showed concern. The Xylosian alliance is too valuable to jeopardize. If conducting this courting ritual buys us time to find a diplomatic solution, you're authorized to proceed. Just don't let it interfere with the summit negotiations. Understood, sir. But I should note that there are ethical considerations beyond the diplomatic ones. Dr. Ellis has explained that. I've reviewed Ellis's report, Terrence interrupted. The potential psychological impact on the Xylosian female is noted. That makes a careful approach even more critical. Keep me updated after each of these ritual meetings. And Vance. Yes, sir. Try not to accidentally marry anyone else while you're sorting this out. The following days unfolded in a surreal rhythm. By day, Kalen led complex negotiations regarding resource-sharing agreements and jurisdiction disputes in shared space. By night, he participated in increasingly intimate Xylosian rituals with Lyra. The first meeting, knowledge-sharing, surprised him with its depth. Rather than simple conversation, it involved a technologically enhanced meditation where thoughts took semi-visible form between them. Lyra shared her comprehensive understanding of stellar cartography and navigation theories that surpassed much of Federation knowledge. Kalen, in turn, revealed his insights on interspecies governance and conflict resolution. Your mind patterns suggest mathematical elegance, she commented afterward. Did you not consider becoming a theoretical physicist rather than a diplomat? The question startled him. He had indeed been torn between those exact paths in his youth, something not recorded in his official biography. Her perception was uncanny. The second meeting delved into spiritual beliefs. Kalen had never considered himself particularly spiritual, but as Lyra guided him through Xylosian meditation techniques, he experienced moments of connection that transcended ordinary consciousness. For brief instances, he sensed what might be her emotional landscape, complex, determined, and tinged with what felt like genuine affection. By the third meeting, physical coordination through ritual movement, Kalen found himself genuinely looking forward to their time together. The movements resembled a cross between Tai Chi and partner dancing, requiring both individuals to anticipate and complement each other's actions. Despite their different physiologies, they achieved surprising synchronicity. "You adapt quickly," Lyra observed, her feathers displaying the iridescent pattern he now recognized as pleasure. "Most non-Xylosians require many attempts to achieve such harmony." "Perhaps I've had excellent instruction," he replied, surprised by the warmth in his own voice. Meanwhile, tensions were brewing within the diplomatic mission. Intelligence reports indicated that Archon Zexvalier, leader of the Xylosian Traditional Values Coalition, had expressed public disapproval of the potential union between a human and a member of a prestigious Xylosian family. The Archon had arrived unexpectedly at the station, ostensibly to observe the summit, but clearly with additional motives. After the fourth meeting, an unexpectedly moving experience where they created a joint artistic expression through sound and light manipulation, Kalen was approached by Lieutenant Commander Sato. "Sir, we've intercepted concerning communications. Archon Zexvalier has been meeting privately with representatives from the Federation's Conservative Colonial Association, specifically with Senator Blackwood's staff." Kalen frowned. Senator Blackwood was known for his xenophobic views, particularly his opposition to what he termed excessive alien influence in Federation policy. "What's the nature of these communications?" "They appear to be coordinating a joint statement opposing your ritual participation with Lyra. Tavas, there are suggestions they may attempt to frame it as a security risk, claiming the Xylosians might gain undue influence over Federation military strategy through intimate connection with a high-ranking officer. Political opportunism on both sides," Kalen muttered. "Monitor the situation, but don't intervene yet. Any interference could escalate matters." The fifth meeting with Lyra, focused on practical problem-solving, provided an unexpected opportunity to address these emerging complications. They were presented with a complex puzzle involving resource allocation during a simulated crisis. As they worked through the challenge together, Kalen found himself impressed by Lyra's strategic thinking. "You have a gift for seeing multiple consequences simultaneously," he observed. "It is part of Xylosian perception," she explained. "We experience time slightly differently than humans, seeing probability cascades rather than linear progressions." Kalen hesitated, then decided on directness. "Lyra, are you aware of Archon Zexvalier's presence on the station?" Her feathers flattened instantly, alarm. "The Archon is here? This was not authorized by our council. He's been meeting with certain Federation factions who oppose human Xylosian integration. I believe they may try to interfere with our situation." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Zexvalier has long advocated for Xylosian genetic purity. He lost significant influence when my father published the ancestral codices, proving that our species has successfully integrated with others throughout our history." She hesitated. "Admiral Kalen, this creates danger beyond political maneuvering. The Archon follows the path of absolute separation. Those who believe psycho-spiritual contamination leads to racial degradation. You believe he might take direct action against us? Against you specifically. In his doctrine, you represent contamination of our species' future." Her feathers trembled slightly. The sixth meeting, dream sharing, would be particularly vulnerable to interference. "Perhaps we should postpone." Kalen considered this. "No. Postponement would signal weakness and potentially embolden him. But we'll take precautions. The ritual will be conducted in a secure location with monitoring." The concern in her eyes touched him unexpectedly. "Your safety matters to me," she said simply. "As yours does to me," he replied, surprised by how genuinely he meant it. That evening, Kalen received an urgent message from Dr. Ellis. "Admiral, I've been analyzing Xylosian historical texts about the ritual of severed paths. There's something crucial you should know. It's not simply a psychological uncoupling, as I initially believed. For a Xylosian who has focused significant psycho-spiritual energy on a destiny bond, the severing process can cause permanent damage to their psychic abilities. In Lyra's case, as a knowledge keeper initiate, this could effectively end her career path and social standing. The implications hit him like a physical blow. Rejecting Lyra wouldn't just cause temporary distress. It could destroy her future entirely. Yet proceeding with a union based on obligation rather than genuine connection seemed equally wrong. The sixth meeting, dream sharing, was scheduled for the following night in a secured medical chamber specially prepared with both Federation and Xylosian monitoring equipment. As a precaution, Kalen arranged for discreet security personnel outside the chamber, though he kept this detail from Lyra to avoid adding to her concerns. The ritual began with both of them reclining on specially designed couches while Elder Merrick's administered a Xylosian psychoactive compound that would facilitate shared consciousness. Dr. Ellis stood by to monitor human physiological responses. Your minds will meet in the dream space, Elder Merrick's explained. There, ancestral memories and deep truths emerge. The experience transcends ordinary perception. As the compound took effect, Kalen felt himself drifting into an altered state. Colors intensified, then dissolved into patterns of light that seemed to carry meaning beyond visual perception. He sensed rather than saw Lyra's presence nearby, a complex constellation of energy and awareness. Their consciousness began to merge at the edges, creating a shared mental landscape. Kalen experienced flashes of Lyra's childhood, the rigorous training of a knowledge keeper's daughter, hours spent memorizing star charts and ancestral histories, the moment when his casual words had crystallized into a defining purpose for her. He felt her dedication, her determination to excel in every discipline that might make her worthy of the destiny she believed had been promised. With startling clarity, he understood that she had shaped her entire development around the possibility of their union. But deeper than this, he encountered something unexpected, genuine admiration and emerging love, not foreign. Imagined human she had built in her mind, but for the actual person she had come to know through their ritual meetings. She saw him clearly, strengths and flaws alike, and valued what she saw. The revelation moved him profoundly. Then, abruptly, the mental landscape darkened. A foreign presence intruded, sharp, discordant energy that felt like shards of obsidian cutting through their shared consciousness. Contamination must be purged, came a thought voice filled with disgust and righteous certainty. The bloodline must remain pure. Kalen felt Lyra's mental presence shift defensively, moving to shield him from the intrusion. Archon Zex Valier, her thought voice identified. He has accessed the psychic network. The attack came as waves of disorienting energy, attempting to sever the connection between their minds. Kalen, though untrained in psychic defense, instinctively strengthened his focus on Lyra, creating a feedback loop of mutual protection. Your primitive mind cannot withstand true Xylosian power, the Archon's presence projected. Release her consciousness and depart our collective destiny. Kalen felt himself weakening under the psychic assault, but then something remarkable happened. Ancestral memories, not his own, but accessed through their connection, began to flow into his awareness. He saw ancient Xylosians joining minds with various species across millennia, creating bonds that strengthened both partners. The knowledge came with techniques for mental defense and coordinated consciousness. Together, Kalen and Lyra constructed a unified mental barrier against the Archon's intrusion. Physical reality briefly intruded, shouts, alarms, the sense of bodies moving around their still forms, but they maintained focus on the psychic battle. You poison our future, Zex Valier's presence spat, but his attacks were weakening against their combined resistance. You deny our past, Lyra countered. The ancestral wisdom shows that union brings strength, not contamination. With a final surge of cooperative energy, they expelled the intruding consciousness from their shared mental space. As the connection began to fade, Kalen felt Lyra's presence entwine briefly with his in a gesture of profound intimacy and gratitude. You fought for me, her thought voice whispered as the dream state dissolved. Not from obligation, but from choice. Kalen awoke to chaos. Medical personnel hovered around them, while security officers restrained Archon Zexvalier nearby. The Archon was in a state of agitated fury, feathers raised in aggressive display as he shouted in the Xylosian language. He attempted to sabotage the ritual by introducing a psychoactive compound into the environmental system. Elder Merix explained gravely. Our security detected it moments after activation. Had you not formed such a strong mental connection, both your minds could have suffered severe damage. Lyra, regaining consciousness beside him, reached for Kalen's hand. You accessed the ancestral memories, she said wonderingly. No non-Xylosian has ever achieved this. The implications of what had occurred spread quickly through both delegations. The Xylosian Council representatives formally denounced Archon Zexvalier's actions and removed him from all official positions. Federation security placed him in custody pending formal charges of attempted assault on diplomatic personnel. In the aftermath, Kalen found his perspective fundamentally altered. The connection he had experienced with Lyra had revealed dimensions of understanding he hadn't believed possible between different species. Moreover, he had glimpsed in her a spirit that complemented his own in unexpected ways, determined yet adaptable, structured yet creative, dutiful yet capable of profound personal choice. As the summit negotiations concluded successfully 3 days later, Kalen faced the decision he had been postponing. The 7th meeting, the final ritual, awaited his consent. According to tradition, this would involve a formal declaration of intent before witnesses from both species. He requested a private conversation with Lyra in the station's arboretum, a neutral space filled with plants from dozens of worlds, including a section dedicated to Xylosian crystal flowers that sang softly in the artificial breeze. 15 years ago, I spoke words without understanding their power, he began. I created an obligation that has shaped your life in ways I never intended. That is true, she acknowledged, her amber eyes steady on his. But intention is not the only force that creates reality. What began as your casual words became my chosen path. And now, after everything that's happened, what you truly want, Lyra, not what destiny dictates or tradition demands. What does your heart desire? Her feathers rippled in a complex pattern he had come to recognize as deep emotion. I want connection that honors both our traditions while creating something new. I want partnership that allows each of us to grow stronger together than apart. She paused, then added quietly, I want you, Kalen Vance, the man I have come to know, not the fantasy I once imagined. Kalen took her hands in his, a gesture that crossed their cultural boundaries. The 7th meeting traditionally ends with a decision. I've made mine. He smiled, but not from obligation or to fulfill a childhood promise. Then why? She asked, feathers trembling slightly. Because sometimes the universe knows better than we do what paths we should walk. Because in coming to know you, I've discovered someone I admire and wish to build a future with. Because what began as a misunderstanding has become the most genuine connection I've ever experienced. He drew a deep breath. I choose you, Lyra Te Vos. Not because I must, but because I want to. The 7th meeting took place 3 days later in the station's Grand Assembly Hall. Representatives from both species gathered to witness what many were already calling a historic union. Elder Merix presided, while Admiral Terrence represented the Federation. The ceremony combined traditions, Xylosian psycho-spiritual rituals alongside human vows of partnership and commitment. When they exchanged the ceremonial promises, Kalen spoke in flawless Xylosian, while Lyra responded in English, symbolizing their bridge between worlds. What was carelessly promised has become deliberately chosen, Elder Merix declared as the ceremony concluded. The threads of destiny often appear random until the pattern reveals itself. The union of Admiral Kalen Vance and Lyra Te Vos quickly became more than a personal milestone. As news spread throughout both societies, their story captured public imagination. The human diplomat who jokingly promised to marry an alien child, only to have her return years later to claim his heart. While tabloid media fixated on the romantic elements, political analysts recognize the deeper significance. The first formal union between a high-ranking Federation officer and a member of Xylosian knowledge-keeping nobility. Not everyone celebrated this development. Despite Archon Zexvalier's disgrace and imprisonment, his traditional values coalition continued promoting separation between species. On Earth, Senator Blackwood delivered passionate speeches about protecting human genetic heritage and resisting alien cultural infiltration. Yet for each voice of opposition, many more expressed support for what was increasingly viewed as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. Politics aside, there are practical considerations. Dr. Ellis reminded them during a private consultation 3 weeks after the ceremony. We know little about long-term physiological compatibility between humans and Xylosians. We've discussed this, Kalen replied, his hand resting lightly on Lyra's shoulder. We understand the challenges. Lyra's feathers shifted in the pattern, indicating thoughtful consideration. Our species' reproductive processes differ fundamentally. Creating biological offspring would require technological intervention beyond current capabilities. We have agreed this is not our immediate priority. There are many ways to build family, Kalen added, including mentorship and knowledge sharing across cultures. Lyra will continue her work as knowledge keeper while serving as cultural liaison to the Federation. I've requested reassignment to the Diplomatic Corps to facilitate similar work. Admiral Terrence approved this transition readily. Having witnessed the political advantages of their union, he recognized its potential as a model for future integration efforts. The Xylosian alliance has already strengthened our position in 3 ongoing negotiations, he told Kalen during the reassignment briefing. Sometimes personal choices have strategic implications beyond anything we could plan. 6 months after their union ceremony, Kalen and Lyra established a joint residence on Aegis Station with design elements from both cultures. Crystal formations alongside earth plants, meditation alcoves adjoining standard human living spaces. They divided their time between diplomatic engagements, cultural exchange programs, and private exploration of their unique bond. The dream-sharing experience during the Archon's attack had created lasting changes in both of them. Kalen occasionally accessed fragments of Xylosian ancestral memories, while Lyra demonstrated unusual insight into human emotional patterns. Dr. Ellis and Xylosian healers studied these phenomena with fascination, documenting the first confirmed case of permanent psychic transfer between species. Your connection appears to have facilitated genetic memory access across species boundaries, Dr. Ellis explained during one examination. It's unprecedented, but consistent with Xylosian theories about destiny bonds. The ancestral codices speak of such possibilities, Lyra confirmed. When souls are genuinely aligned, barriers between minds become permeable. These developments attracted significant scientific interest, leading to establishment of the Joint Psycho-Spiritual Research Initiative at Aegis Station. Kalen and Lyra served as both advisors and occasional research subjects, their unique connection offering insights into cross-species communication possibilities that extended beyond conventional translation technology. 1 year after their union, during a diplomatic mission to Cygnus X7, they revisited the crystalline platform where they had first met. The homecoming carried ceremonial significance for Xylosians, who gathered to witness the formal acceptance of their union by Lyra's ancestral community. I now understand what my child self saw in you, Lyra told Kalen as they stood beneath the crystal-domed ceiling that mirrored the night sky. Not just kindness to a curious child, but possibility itself. Kalen smiled, still sometimes amazed by the journey that had brought them together. And I understand why the universe might occasionally need to arrange things despite our limited perspectives. Some connections transcend what we can consciously recognize. High Elder Talix, now venerable with age, performed the homecoming blessing. The circle completes, he announced to the assembled gathering. What began with words spoken in ignorance now returns as wisdom earned through experience. Later that evening, walking along a pathway lined with bioluminescent crystal formations, Lyra guided Kalen to a secluded meditation garden. "There's something I wish to share with you," she said, her feathers displaying the intricate pattern he had come to recognize as nervous anticipation. "You seem concerned," he observed. "Is everything all right?" "Our research team has made a discovery," she began. "The psychic connection we established during the dream sharing has continued to deepen and stabilize in ways not previously documented. According to both Federation and Xylosian medical analysis, we appear to be developing a form of permanent neural synchronization." "Is that dangerous?" Kaylin asked, immediately concerned for her well-being. "Not dangerous, but significant. This synchronization appears to be facilitating a form of gradual biological harmonization. My cellular structure is adopting certain human characteristics, while yours shows evidence of Xylosian patterns." She hesitated. "There are indications that with continued development, reproductive compatibility might eventually become possible without technological intervention." Kaylin took a moment to absorb this information. "You're saying we might naturally evolve to be able to have children together?" "It remains theoretical and would likely require years, perhaps decades of continued bond strengthening. But yes, the possibility exists." Her amber eyes studied his expression carefully. "Does this possibility disturb you?" He reached out to touch her face gently, a gesture that had become natural between them despite their physiological differences. "Not disturbed, amazed, and grateful that the universe seems determined to prove that differences are not barriers but opportunities for new possibilities. The Knowledge Keepers believe this validates ancient texts that speak of evolutionary destiny paths, the idea that consciousness shapes biology when alignment is sufficiently deep," Lyra explained. "If proven, it would fundamentally change how both our species understand adaptation and evolution." That night, as they shared quarters in the diplomatic residence, Kaylin reflected on the journey that had brought them together. From a careless joke to a life-altering commitment, from cultural misunderstanding to revolutionary discovery, their story had unfolded in ways neither could have predicted. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked softly, seeming to sense his thoughts. "The promise that bound us." "I regret my ignorance," he replied honestly. "I regret that I didn't understand the significance of my words, that I spoke carelessly about something sacred to your people." He traced the pattern of her feathers with gentle fingers. "But I cannot regret where it led us. Sometimes our greatest wisdom comes from our most innocent mistakes." Lyra's feathers shifted in the pattern he now recognized as deep contentment. "In our tradition, we say that destiny does not force, but invites. It presents opportunities, but we must choose to embrace them." "Then I'm grateful for the invitation," Kaylin said, drawing her closer, "and even more grateful for the choice." As they drifted toward sleep, their minds touched in a now familiar connection that transcended ordinary consciousness. In that shared space, neither fully human nor fully Xylosian, they experienced the harmony that came from embracing difference rather than fearing it. 2 years later, Kaylin and Lyra stood before the Federation Council in the Xylosian High Conclave during the formal signing of the Comprehensive Cooperation Treaty. As architects of several key provisions and living embodiments of cross-species integration, they had been asked to deliver the opening address. 15 years ago, a human diplomat made a casual promise to a Xylosian child, Kaylin began. Neither understood the consequences of that moment. And yet, that misunderstanding led to discovery, Lyra continued. What seemed impossible became not only possible, but natural. Our personal journey mirrors the path our peoples have traveled, Kaylin added. From miscommunication to genuine understanding, from separation to integration. We speak today not just as representatives of our respective species, but as proof that differences can become strengths when approached with openness and respect, Lyra concluded. As they completed their joint address, a ripple of appreciation moved through both delegations. What had begun as a diplomatic crisis had transformed into a powerful symbol of possibility, proof that even the most profound differences could be bridged when hearts and minds remained open to connection. Later, in private, Elder Merrick's presented them with a crystal sphere that captured their first meeting as a three-dimensional holographic memory. The small Xylosian child looking up at the human diplomat with wonder, and his casual words that had set everything in motion. Sometimes the most profound truths are spoken in jest, the elder observed. The universe has a sense of humor that transcends our limited understanding. Kalen smiled as he watched the scene play out. His younger self, unaware of how that moment would transform his life, and a bright-eyed child who would return a claim, not just a promise, but his heart. I told her I'd return when she grew into a beautiful Xylosian queen and make her my bride, he recalled. I had no idea I was describing my own future. Perhaps some part of you did, Lyra suggested, her feathers displaying the pattern of philosophical contemplation. Perhaps some connections exist before we become conscious of them. As night fell over Cygnus X7, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the crystalline landscape illuminated by 3 moons. The stars above represented not just distant worlds, but infinite possibilities, new understandings, new connections, new forms of existence that neither species had yet imagined. Where shall we go next? Kalen asked, the question encompassing far more than mere physical travel. Lyra's feathers shifted in the pattern of joyful anticipation. Wherever destiny suggests and choice confirms, she replied. The universe has infinite pathways for those willing to walk them together. And so, bound by a promise that had transformed from careless words to deliberate choice, they continued their journey. Ambassadors not just between species, but between past and future, between what was known and what remained to be discovered. Their story spread across worlds, inspiring others to recognize that sometimes the most profound connections begin with the most unlikely exchanges, and that what appears to be a cosmic joke might actually be the universe's most serious invitation to growth. In the archives of both Federation and Xylosian historical records, their union would be documented as a pivotal moment in interspecies relations. But for Kalen and Lyra, it remained something simpler and more profound. Proof that when barriers fall and differences become bridges, love can emerge in forms previously unimagined, writing new possibilities into the cosmic story of connection and understanding.